everybody. It's great to be back again here, and I got a special guest today that I want you to meet. And I'm not going to tell you all about him, but I'll just tell you what his first name is, and Steve, and then later I'll let you know just who that character is. And he has so many interesting things to share with us, and I'm really anxious to talk to him about it and let him get going on what's happening. So, Steve, would you tell us what you do right now? What I know you're a pastor, but tell us more about what transpires.
I'm a hospice chaplain, so that's a pastor. You get a master's of divinity, and I've been a chaplain for what, 9 years now. It was a long road getting here.
Yeah.
I used to run a construction company.
Yeah.
You know, for a long time. And you know, it was good. I like doing that kind of stuff, but it's a lot of pressure and stress. It was, you know, pretty bad marriage at the time, and that just added to the pressure. And I knew I wanted to work with people on a soul level. I'd read and studied, you know, the Bible and various authors in Swedenborg for a long time, and been through some pretty hard stuff. You know, maybe we'll get into talking about. And I knew I had to make that change, and so I became a hospice chaplain.
Tell me a little bit, you know, when you say a hospice chaplain, you know, hospice is for people who are going to be meeting their maker real soon, generally. Sometimes they pull out of it, but what was that like a little bit before we can do other stuff? A hospice chaplain, the people you met and so forth. Can you relate a little bit about some experiences that you had there in a hospice?
Sure. Yeah. In hospice, a person has to be diagnosed to have a terminal illness of some kind, so they would die in 6 months. You know, obviously that's not an exact thing, but it's a good thing that our society does. It helps make death more acceptable,
on their way
more
out there,
more palliative, they call it. And it's a hard time in people's life. You know, it's very stressful, and people don't know what to do. So the hospice provides doctor, nurse, social worker, and a chaplain. So we help folks, and it's all provided by, you know, Medicare, and it saves the country billions of dollars because they don't have to, you know, go to the hospital for every little scratch and things that happen. So we come to them. So So on that level, it's really great, and I've just had, you know, so many amazing experiences. I can tell you one real quick. Part of my territory is San Francisco. So I had a patient. It was right in the Haight-Ashbury, and they were true hippies. You know, the woman was
true hippie, but
she was wonderful. I mean, just so open, and had this quality of innocence, and she just shared her heart. And she had a bit of a hallucinations. You know, people have different cognitive problems sometimes at the end, and some of them would be negative and fearful and, you know, stressful, but some of them were also beautiful. She actually lived with Janis Joplin, you know.
Really, Janis Joplin herself?
When she was younger.
Holy telefish.
In any case, I would play music for her, songs that I wrote, and she just loved music, and she would just meditate to it and really hear it, you know, and there's a deep affection that takes place. Because there'd be songs that sometimes I compose myself, and she would share. I tried to help her with the hallucinations. Like she'd say, "Oh, look there's a bird on that bush," and it's inside the room. You know, there's not really a bird there, but so she'd be like afraid or freaked out. What's happening? And I'd share things like, "Well, I think maybe the birds come to bring a message, a good thing, a good message." Yeah, that's right. It's a good message, and, you know, make it reframe it so it was, you know, helpful to her. And so a lot of things like that. And when she finally came to the point, you know, the day that she was near passing, I played for her and her husband "Somewhere Over the Rainbow." And
Summer Over the Rainbow.
Because she used to call me. She called me the man with the green rainbow over his head.
Oh my gosh.
That's
That's what she called you.
because she knew I sang songs, and
Uh-huh.
and she saw my aura, you know, or something.
Really wonderful.
And so they just had a joyous moment together before
Yeah.
she passed.
And when you wrote songs, you write songs, which is amazing, you know, you compose your own stuff and then you can play it for people.
Yeah.
It's your own stuff that you're doing. It's not somebody, hey, I got this over here, I do it from my own heart, my soul.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome to me to know that you do.
Well, what I actually do is I write songs based on things that people tell me.
Uh-huh.
Like there's this one man, he had certain levels of dementia, but he could understand and he could talk.
Yeah.
And he knew that his wife could hear him. He was in true internal love
Wow.
with her, and that gave him the deepest connection. And so we talked about that. But he
Yeah.
also had some fears. And I remember one time he said, "They're coming. They're at the north wall. They're coming to get
Wow.
us." You know,
Yeah.
in his having a fear. You know.
And he knew in his own mind that was.
But then we talk about his wife love, and how that love, you can't be taken away,
Yeah.
and it's always there. And so I wrote a song about him and things he told me, that I can
Wow.
feel you in heaven, and his fears, and then how that love overcomes. 'Cause
Yeah.
love, what is spiritual, looks to the eternal.
Uh-huh.
It doesn't look to a temporary thing. So that kind of true love looks to the eternal,
Lasts
because
forever, in other words.
I believe in heaven there's a marriage, which is only the true union of those who delight in each other's good more than their own.
Uh-huh.
So it has to be very genuine,
Yeah.
and it was things
even
like that.
as I listen to you, I can feel with my heart, you're talking about these things that for them it's real, the bird there or whatever, they're coming and what have you, and it's a reality to them. And who's to say it isn't reality, because I've read a lot of stuff about the people who are dying and they go through this and that and what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And my gosh, you're right into it, and
Mm-hmm.
I've known you for a long, long time, Stephen, so when we're talking about this,
Yeah.
it's pretty amazing to me, and it's great,
Yeah.
But, and then afterwards, I'll talk about who you really are, Stephen, and then we'll go from there. But anyway, tell us more of the experiences that you've had like that.
Well, you remind me, we have probably a mutual interest. As a chaplain, and just my own interest, I try and integrate a lot between psychology and religion.
Yeah.
And one of the beautiful things I found, and this is from the Bible, it's a concept called the remains.
The remains.
So I wrote a song about this too. And it means the internal innocence from when we were a child, a little child. We all have remains. That means the innocence in our soul.
Yeah.
When we just loved our parents without any condition. We just were innocent. We loved them.
Yeah.
We didn't know about all the world and all that.
Right.
Or our playmates, or our toys. It was just a pure love. So those bond, and their innocence. The Bible calls it remains.
Mm-hmm. Remains.
So you see kind of an arc with people, or ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You're helpless when you're born, and you have this innocence, and then as you get very, very old, then you become helpless again, but you kind of return. That innocence helps us receive God.
Yeah.
But it has to be incorporated through our life with intelligence. So it's a process of incorporating it
Yeah.
that makes us more whole. So when I see a person that I try not to identify, I just see an old crusty person, that's cantankerous or something.
Yeah.
Look at what's this person's quality of innocence. Where can I, maybe be playful with them, or
Yeah.
do music and stuff, just to help them feel safe. They have to feel safe and trust. And
And that's where you come in really good they can talk to you, and whatever they say, like the one that's saying, hey, they're outside waiting or whatever, and you're listening to them. You're not saying, oh, what are you talking about? You're going along with them and what they feel and think, and They love that, to be accepted in that respect, I'm sure.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think more than anything else, people want to be seen. They want to be seen for who they are inside
Okay.
and accepted. And if I can do that, then it's
Yeah.
come a long
you've
way.
accomplished a heck of a long way. Tell us now about your book. You have two fantastic books that you wrote, and there's one, and let me show it to the folks here, and then tell us a bit about it. It's Rethinking Redemption, Revitalization Relationships.
Revitalizing
Revitalizing
our
all
relationship.
relationships, yeah. And of course, none other than Stephen. And this is the book right here that you can see that he wrote. And he had another book too, and that one was called what?
That one's called Spiritual Perversion.
Spiritual Perversion.
And the reason it's called that is, I mentioned the difficulties in life. When I was young, I got caught up in a place that was a cult. And it's a long story. We don't want to take the whole show on this. But it did lead to me where I'm at.
Yeah.
In that I suffered greatly and had to fight for the custody of
Yeah.
my daughter.
And at the time too, there was a guy who was leading it, and he died or something. He was a bad leader.
Well, I was in the cult for a long time.
Okay.
And then, so it's a long story, but he died after I left,
Okay.
which was a huge factor for all of us being able to, let go and release. So that book is, it's like 400 pages long, and it details in a fictional way what happened, how mind control works. And it's a fascinating subject. I did a book tour, and every time I'd do the book tour, it would become sort of like a seminar on spousal abuse, because spousal abuse is manipulation, and the dynamics are very similar to mind control.
Okay.
Or they sometimes they'll draw you in with love and kindness, but they're actually just manipulating you
Yeah.
to get sucked into their world. In the cult, they had all kinds of different things. They used psychic abilities to pretend like they're completely enlightened.
Yeah.
Therefore, you have to accept whatever they say. So the book demonstrates in a fictional style, and what makes it really interesting, I realized as I was doing it, is I'm writing it from my moment in the present. But I'm trying to write it in such a way that the reader can see what's happening. They can see the manipulation.
Yeah.
So it
Follow it.
makes a sense of drama.
But that's good when you say they see what's happening instead of you're falling for this, falling for that, but they can follow the path that he's trying to lead or she is trying to lead or whatever.
Yeah, the reader can kind of, they can see what's going on.
Yeah. 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 The other thing too that well, let me relate to you really, folks, who this gentleman is, by the way. I've known him for a long time. A long, long time when he was in diapers. This is my very own son, Steve Sanchez.
Yay!
That's Steve Sanchez. And, I'm a psychologist. My doctorate is in psychology and so forth. And I never could figure you out in any way, or my other kids, but I had a lot of fun. We enjoyed our lives a lot. When you were growing up and the brothers and so forth, we went hunting together, we went fishing, we did a lot of stuff together. So I grew up with you guys. You brought me up. I didn't bring you up too, in some ways. And that I love. And then in music, my one other son plays the guitar, another one the guitar also, my daughter the piano. And you're a great drummer. You didn't mention this, but you do drums and you're great on the drums. And the only thing I do with music is I steal your drums sometimes and I pound on them because I love it,
Yeah.
But I never taught you any darn thing about drumming or whatever. But that's one other thing about this, Stephen. You've got this talent in drumming and then writing music and so forth, and then you're dipped into the writing books. It's awesome. Anyway, I wanted to share that with my people.
Creativity's always been a big part of, just who I am.
Yeah.
I loved writing. I read like crazy, absorbed stuff, and by reading I learned, about writing. All kinds of authors. I just absorbed everything, but I also paint. And then I most recently started writing music.
Okay.
like I was saying before,
You said
I
5.
was always the drummer, so I didn't play guitar. But then I actually here at Chabot College, I I think I was, I don't know, I was 21 or 22, and I decided, well, I may as well take a guitar class. You know,
Yeah.
all my friends play guitar.
Yeah. And
so
brother?
I decided but once I started getting my fingers to be able to, you know, press a chord, I just made up chords.
You did.
So I made up
okay.
chords just by sound, and then I composed all kind of, you know, instrumental things.
Wow.
But I never sang. But as a chaplain, I was doing a service at Kaiser
Okay.
on Sundays. I was in the world-class rehab center, which was an amazing experience because it's total trial by fire. I'd never been a chaplain before, and they just said, you know, go see this person. She just found out she has cancer, and she's going to die.
Wow.
So I learned. I had to learn fast. But what I was saying is I did a service there, and I'd play my pieces sometimes, and then people would say, well, we want to sing. So I started to learn how to play and sing old songs, and I've done it ever since.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a great thing with old folks because you can play an old song like "You're My Sunshine,"
Yeah.
and I've played that song 100 times. And I actually wanted to tell you this, is that I was just starting to play guitar, and I didn't know much at all. And your mom,
Yeah.
Grandma, she was, you know, basically on her deathbed, and
Right.
she wanted me to play a song for her. She wanted me to play "You Are My Sunshine."
I got that song in my, it's written in my desk somewhere. Anyway, go ahead.
But I didn't know how to play it at that point.
Yeah.
So I always regretted that.
You are my
But
sunshine.
I've played it thousands of times for other folks
Uh-huh.
at their bedside.
I'll be darned. And what's amazing to me, Steve, is that the way you didn't just say, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do this, do that. You just sort of followed things, and then you ended up there, like being a chaplain, you know, for the people who are dying and so forth, you know. You just kind of felt with your heart, you filled that thing. And then it came. It wasn't, oh, I'm going to major in this and major in that. And then when you were taking the guitar, even there, you took it, but you did your own thing.
Yeah.
Which I think is amazing, and I love it that you did that.
Well, in the young part of my life, I actually drifted. I needed direction.
Sure.
But I got, married early and went through all that. But in light of what you're saying, I can finish this story about with the
Sure.
The cult. Writing the first book was incredibly therapeutic,
Mm-hmm.
having to relive extremely difficult experiences. And I realized as I was writing it, I was giving compassion to myself that I never got anywhere else. And as a writer, you want to write responsibly, and I always had this figure up to the left of me that I was writing to the audience.
Mm-hmm.
And night after night, I'd be doing that, and I'd feel this return of compassion to this
You felt it.
figure up to the left of me. And then one day, my writing coach asked me, what's your writing process, And so I said, oh, okay, I play these chords that are very beautiful and meaningful, and it gets me into a deep feeling place. And memory comes from deep feeling.
Oh, okay.
And then she asked me, and then I started to say, and I write to this figure up to the left of myself. And just as I said it, it opened up, and I was just flooded with a light.
Just like that.
And
Wow.
and I just basically just cried with joy, and that was the presence of the Lord, showing me, wow, I've always been here. I didn't know that. I was just writing to this figure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then I realized, it's him.
Wow, just
He's
like
always
that.
been here. So that is a big factor that set me onto the path of becoming a pastor and a chaplain. I still had to go to seminary and all that,
Yeah.
but I knew I wanted to work more on that level.
Yeah. Okay. So when you saw that light, it was just a wide opening thing for you. And then after that, you thought, this is what I want to do, work with people who are on their way out, I guess, or whatever. And then you went to the seminary, you said, and that's where you got your so-called credentials or whatever, right?
Yeah, it was maybe a year after I decided, and I didn't realize it, but right in my backyard, there was the Graduate Theological Union, and in particular there was the Pacific School of Religion, in which they housed a whole library of Swedenborg's books. And I'd been a student of Swedenborg for a long time at this point. To me, it's the greatest study. Very few people will actually read it, but I do a lot of it on a blog that I do. My blog address is influxdivine.com.
Influxdivine.com.
Influxdivine.
Folks, write that down, influxdivine.com. And tune in to Stephen.
So on my blog, I'll tell chaplain stories, and but I'd like to integrate a lot with psychology and religion, and Swedenborg is just incredibly good at that.
Yeah.
So I interpret movies, see spiritual themes in movies that I think they're biblical, because they're in our psyche. When we try and make meaning, we go to these repeated themes because they're actual themes from the Bible. And they're in our psyche when we want redemption, and that's a lot of what this book is about. Is redemption. My first book was about redemption, except in a personal experience way, because it leads through that, and then how I recovered. This one's about the redemption that the Lord provided for all of humanity.
Okay.
I see it in history. I try and show how dark it was on the planet and why He had to come. And so what He redeemed us from, seeing that helps us love all the more. You see what you're redeemed from, it increases, by contrast, the love that He had to sacrifice Himself for.
Tell me a little bit of that, when you say it sort of grew out of this, your love and so forth. And it wasn't just lights out here, but it's something in your heart that you felt and came out.
Yes, I suffered greatly in the whole cult thing, and what can you do? You can either just consume yourself in anger and rage, or you can realize anger and revenge are their own punishment. So I suffer myself in trying to feel that. So I took it as best I can. It's a process, but I took it to God. And it basically humbles you. And I believe, the Lord can only be received in humility. We have to come with innocence and humility to approach Him. Because we're literally receptacles of His love. And if we think we got it all together and we're prideful and stuff like that, we're basically blocking Him out. He cannot. It's reciprocal. He doesn't. He leaves us free. He will not force anyone, because it would mean nothing. We have to approach Him in freedom from ourself. See what I'm saying? So sometimes religious people miss that. He doesn't do anything unilaterally, but it makes it more intimate. It's completely reciprocal. So we turn to Him, and He's always turned to us.
And when you say a lot of religious people miss this, what is there about that? Those religious people have their mind set on something, set on this, and they don't receive as much as they should.
It's a good question, because there's doctrine, which doctrine is good. It helps us to understand things. But doctrine's meant to serve life, not life to serve doctrine. So when religious people, they have certain fixed ideas and they take the Bible literally. The Bible has an internal sense and an external sense, and the two are bonded. It has to have both in order to be whole. But when they just take it literally, then it can be misleading. So they created a doctrine called salvation by faith alone, which means you just have to have faith and believe, and you'll get saved. But you actually have to be in union between between love and faith. Love is the bottom line of our existence. It's what you love is what you are.
Yeah.
but you can change it by the way you believe.
Yeah, and you use the two words, internal and external sense of whatever it is. Can you enlighten me a little on that? You know, internal and external sense. Internal, well, go ahead.
No, that's a great question. I think it's extremely important to see that, because anything that exists, in order to exist, has to have an internal and external. But I mean in terms of a person. So in this world, I can present in a certain way and look good and say all this stuff, but internally I'm thinking something different.
Okay.
I'm actually being selfish, and I want to
okay.
undermine that person.
Oh.
So when the external of ourself and internal can come into greater harmony, then we are our more genuine self. You know,
Right.
our heart shows in our face and our eyes what we are and who we are.
Yeah.
But the Bible has an internal and an external sense. Everything that exists has an internal and external sense.
Okay.
And it's a very key concept, because this is how you make distinctions. For instance, with the Bible, some people only know the external sense.
Yeah.
And it's not really taken in yet until you take it internally. You know,
And
people say you internalize something.
Feel it, yeah.
Yeah, you feel it, and it changes your heart. It's transformative.
Yeah.
Then we're in an internal relationship with it.
I see.
And that makes all the difference. But
Yeah.
the external is a protector of the internal. So it's useful. If people are not ready for it, then you just stay in the external and you're safe.
Yeah.
Because once you love it, you can't go back.
Right, right.
Well, you can, but it's a very bad thing.
Tough thing. Well, Stephen, we're coming to a close on this because our time is up almost. But I want to express to you my love for you personally, by the way,
Thank
as
you.
my son, and I love you. And I love the work you're doing too. You just, my gosh, you know, when you're a kid like this, you know, hey, that's innocent Stephen, and he's fighting with his brothers and doing this and that. And now you're a tall human being, you know, and you're looking up, explaining things to me. I used to explain to you. I'm not very good at explaining, but now you're doing the job of explaining, and I love it. And as
Well,
I
we're very
said,
proud of you too.
well, thank you.
Putting out, doing these shows, and it's great stuff.
Yeah, well, I love it, and I love the fact you still play basketball. You're still into this world, doing your thing and having fun and so forth. But you're also into that internal, external thing with doing with the Bible and so forth. You know?
Yeah.
And that is, to me, awesome. And now I want to conclude and let you folks know that be sure and tune in. You know, you can get in on channel 27, 28 at Chabot College, and you'll get more information on this film after we get through with it. But right now, I want to say adios, folks. And Stephen, thank you very much for being with us. It's
Thank you.
Awesome.
It's fun.
So, adios, folks.